Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 22nd. In response to Governor Newsom's Executive Order N29-20 and Resolution 2020-09 declaring the existence of a local emergency related to the COVID pandemic, public participation in the City of Grass Valley City Council and other public meetings shall be electronic only and without a physical location for public participation until further notice in compliance with California state guidelines on social distancing. The City Council welcomes you to attend the meetings electronically, which are scheduled at 7 p.m. on the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month. Your interest is encouraged and appreciated. This meeting is being broadcast live on Comcast Channel 17 by Nevada County Media, on the internet at the city's website, www.cityofgrassvalley.com, or on the City of Grass Valley YouTube channel. Indexed archives of meetings are available via this link as well. Members of the public are encouraged to submit public comments via voicemail at 530-274-4390 and email to public@cityofgrassvalley.com. Comments will be reviewed and distributed before the meeting if received by 5 p.m. Comments received after that will be addressed during the item or at the end of the meeting. Council will have the option to modify their actions on items based on comments received. Action may be taken on any agenda item. Agenda materials, staff reports, and background information related to regular agenda items are available on the City of Grass Valley's website. Materials related to an item on this agenda submitted to the council after distribution of the agenda packet will also be made available at the city's website, subject to the city staff's ability to post the document before the meeting. If you do not have the means to participate electronically, please contact the city at 274-4390, and our staff will be happy to identify alternative means for you to participate. Thank you. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Taylor, roll call.
Councilmember Arbuckle?
Here.
Councilmember Hodge?
Here.
Councilmember Levine?
Here.
Vice Mayor Aguilar?
Here.
Mayor Swarthout?
Yes.
All 5 members are present.
Agenda approval, any changes to the agenda this evening?
No changes from staff.
Great, thank you. No closed session this evening. Our first item is introductions and presentations, and we are going to have a COVID-19 update presentation from our county public health department. Are you getting them?
I'm adding them to the meeting right now, Lisa.
Go.
Jill, do you still have access to the computer? I don't see it anymore. You there?
So we have Dr. Johnson. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Is Jill Blake coming on also, Taylor?
She is, but she's no longer in the meeting.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll start with Dr. Johnson, and then when she joins us, she can chime in. So welcome. Thank you for being with us this evening for the Grass Valley City Council meeting.
Thank you. I'm Rick Johnson. I'm the interim health officer for Nevada County, and Jill and I were supposed to tag team and do a PowerPoint, which I believe you have control over. I do not have control over it. So Jill had the first part of it. So if she's not on, I suppose I can start it.
She's joining now.
She's coming. Great. She's my saving grace. Okay, she's coming on.
We're just all working the best we can with this technology. Sometimes we have some challenges. Thank you for your patience.
No problem.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay,
Just can't see you.
I'm on my phone and the technology is weird. Sorry. I think I can share my screen.
I can see it.
Yep, okay. We got you up, Jill. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry about the delay. So thanks for having us here tonight. We're here to do a COVID-19 update, as you said. We'll be doing an update on testing, then an update on the blueprint for a safer economy. At that point, I'll hand it over to Dr. Johnson. Then he'll talk about COVID-19 by the numbers, understanding our dashboard, and then there'll be some time for questions if you have any.
Great, thank you.
So I'll kick it off with an update on testing. As you know, there's an OptumServe site located in Grass Valley at the Veterans Building. There is a current around anywhere between 60 hours and 72. So right around 2.5 to 3 days. The utilization of that site has decreased. So we want to encourage people to schedule appointments. At one point, it was a little more challenging to do so, but it's become much easier. And also, I wanted to let you know that they are reserving testing appointments now they're holding testing appointments for essential workers. So if you work in the public sector, if you work in schools, if you work in any, they're holding testing appointments for you. And if those testing appointments are not utilized by essential workers, they'll be released so that they can be used by the public. In anticipation of the upcoming flu season, the state is working to ensure that more COVID-19 testing and turnaround times decrease to about 24 to 48 hours. They're working with a partner, Perkin Elmer, to process about an additional 150,000 tests per day. I believe they're onboarding that lab starting in November. And that will be terrific because more testing and a quicker turnaround time will help to improve our department's contact tracing efforts. And that step is essential to reopening our community and our economy. Switching to a blueprint for a safer economy, I'm sure you all are familiar with this to a certain extent. As you know, Governor Newsom retired the county monitoring list. Some people call it the watch list, and unveiled a new tiered system with clear criteria for business openings and closures. This new system incorporates lessons learned over the last 6 to 8 months, and as Dr. Johnson will attest to, we have all learned a lot in the last 6 to 8 months. And it represents a phased progression that are based on risk levels, and Dr. Johnson will talk more about that in a short while. At the same time, this is good news, the state introduced a new interactive web page so that people can easily determine what's allowable in their county at any given time and how their county is performing in the state's metrics. And those metrics are the new cases per 100,000 population per day, and they look at the 7-day average, and then also testing positivity. They look at a 7-day average. So based on those two metrics, every county is assigned a tier. And the website where someone can go is right there at the bottom of the page. So these are the tiers. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with them right now. There's the purple, red, orange, and yellow tiers, widespread, substantial, moderate, and minimal. You can see the adjusted case rates and the positivity rates that place a county in those tiers. I will tell you that if a county places, for example, in the red tier, according to its adjusted cases, the positivity rate, the county will be in the more restrictive tier. And that county ended up in the red tier when this was introduced. You can see by the language here that at the widespread stage, many non-essential indoor business operations are closed. When you get down to substantial, you'll see that some non-essential indoor business operations are closed. When you get down to moderate, you can see that some indoor business operations are open with modifications. And in the minimal tier or the yellow tier, most indoor business operations are open with modifications. So I'm sure you're all aware of this as well. As of today, September 22nd, we have moved from the substantial tier into the moderate tier based on our adjusted case rate and our positivity rate. And that's good news for everybody. How we move through the tiers. So how did we get from red to orange? A county moves forward or backward based on what is happening in that county. So we move backwards or forwards based on the data for Nevada County alone. The data is reviewed weekly by the California Department of Public Health, Their first assessment was released a couple weeks back, and it's updated on Tuesdays as it was today. At a minimum, counties must remain in a tier for at least 3 weeks before moving forward. So because we moved into the orange tier today, the soonest we could move to a less restrictive tier is October 13th. To move forward, a county must meet the next tier's criteria for 2 consecutive weeks. And even if we meet criteria for a lesser tier, we can only advance 1 tier at a time if we're moving to less restrictive tiers. I hope that makes sense. And if a county's metrics worsen for 2 consecutive weeks, the county will be assigned a more restrictive tier, or we move backwards. At this point, I'll hand it off to Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Mayor and council members. So you're all familiar with the dimmer switch concept, and this is really about a partnership. Who has control of this dimmer switch, and how do we move from one tier to another? Well, essentially, there's 2 parts to it. One part of that is congratulations need to be given to the public for adhering to the guidelines for social distancing, for masking, for minimizing groups and gatherings. That's an incredible part of what allows us to loosen up, to open the dimmer switch, so to speak, to a less restrictive category, and has allowed us to move from tier 2 to tier 3. The other part of it is public health gets to watch and react to the data that comes in about cases and about testing. And in response to that, and this is very time sensitive, public health begins to do case investigation and contact tracing to try to minimize, to slow down the potential spread of the COVID-19 infections in the community. So you can see here an example in this covid19.ca.gov website. Many sectors are outlined, and there you can see one example there for restaurants and an illustration of what happens as you move from one tier to another. And so what has happened for us in this category is we've been allowed to have indoor dining up to 50% of capacity, or 200 people, whichever is fewer, instead of the 25% capacity. And that's incredibly important because of the smoke issues that we've been having, and also because of the fact that sooner or later, although I don't see it coming yet, we're going to have cooler weather and precipitation, hopefully. And that will force people indoors. And by moving into tier 3, that will enable us to move with a greater capacity to accommodate that. So next slide, please. So here's an outline of some more of the changes that we have seen enabled to be happen starting today as we move from tier 2 to tier 3. In addition to restaurants, which I've already mentioned, other places that are now able to operate indoors at maximum of 50% capacity include places of worship and movie theaters. Gyms and fitness centers and indoor pools are now up to 25% of capacity. Wineries, 25% of capacity indoors. Bars, breweries, and distilleries are in a different category. They still can only operate outdoors with modifications, and this is assuming they do not have any food being provided on their property. So all of these sectors, and go to that website if you want some more specific, all of these sectors can open to these levels with the modifications that are clearly outlined on this very user-friendly website. Next slide. So this is all based upon risk. It's not just haphazard. A lot of work has been done in determining which activities and which sectors present the most risk, and then gradually allowing those sectors to open as the epidemiological evidence allows based upon the risk. And there you can see a list. I'm not going to read through the bullets. You can read them faster than I can. But those are the bullets that determine the risk that allows us to move from sector to sector. So next slide. So how do we prevent moving back to a restrictive tier? A lot of this is up to the public. As I said, part of it is the work that public health has done, and I want to congratulate our team who's been working hard to go ahead and minimize the transmission, the movement of infection in the community. But what we are doing is reacting to the behavior of the public. Number one, it's about face coverings. And recent evidence is showing that not only do face coverings protect the person that you are near, but they also protect you, because by diminishing the viral load that you might be exposed to, that you might inhale, if you get infected, your infection will not be as serious. So evidence continues to change, and we respond to that and change our guidance accordingly. If you went back 6 months, we would have said face coverings aren't necessary. Now we're saying face coverings are good, not only for the person that you are around, but they're good for you also. So that's very important. Number two still is washing your hands frequently, and not just wiping it, with a paper towel after, splashing it on water for a couple of seconds, but vigorous washing for 20 seconds is important. Number three, maintaining a 6-foot distance. And you've seen some political stuff going on where the CDC has put out guidance and then retracted guidance about, well, maybe this can be transmitted further than 6 feet through droplets that get suspended in the air. The bulk of the transmission is close contact within 6 feet through large droplets. Sure, there are smaller particles that can stay in the air suspended for a while, but the bulk of it is within 6 feet. The fourth is minimizing the mixing of households. And let me make an important point here. People tend to follow the rules at their place of work. Their boss is looking over their shoulder. Are they wearing a mask? Are they washing their hands and using hand sanitizer appropriately? Are they keeping social distancing between workers? Are they not getting together in the lunchroom? Those kinds of things. But people tend to let down their guard as soon as they leave the workplace and go home, or on a weekend when they begin to do whatever kind of fun things they're going to do. The problem is that whatever you do that increases your risk in the evening and on the weekend, you bring it back to the workplace, and there's a ripple effect. And the other thing is, people who have not a whole lot of symptoms, but some symptoms, perhaps hourly wage employees who don't have sick leave, will say, I can take 2 Advil and go to work because I can't afford to take time off today because I don't have sick leave, and I've got to feed my spouse and my kids and so on. So we need to encourage people who are sick to stay home. We need to encourage people to think that this is a 24/7 responsibility that we all have to protect ourselves, to protect our households, and to protect our community. The fifth thing is it's important that we still get tested. I know this testing fatigue, but it's important that we keep this testing rate up for 2 reasons. One is we need to identify early on those who might be asymptomatic and positive so that we can stop transmission in that community. If they're not tested, people may be able to transmit the virus without us knowing it, and that's incredibly important. The other thing is we need to have large numbers of people tested so that our positivity rates are low. If we can demonstrate that we don't have a lot of virus in the community, if we can increase the denominator, then we can continue to advance through these tiers and get into less restrictive tiers. And the last one there, move the slide here, respond to public health if they call you, and abide by quarantine and isolation orders. So I know there's some resistance to this. I know this is difficult. I know this is restrictive, but we do have a moral and ethical responsibility to our households and to our community to do what's right so that we don't allow other people to get sick, especially those who are more vulnerable in our community, and that's the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. Next slide. So this is the time for even more diligence. As we loosen up, it's a time where our risk increases. We need to pay attention to those messages even more than we were tightly restricted. Now, the numbers on our dashboard here, you might say, well, they're a little different than they're on the state website. And I'll point that out in the next slide. But since this has begun, we have had 524 cases that have been confirmed in Nevada County. We have now 47 active cases. Active cases are those that are currently in isolation, that are actively being looked at by our case investigators so that we can check on their well-being. We can make sure they have everything they need. If we're asking them to isolate, we're ensuring them that they have a safe place to stay, that they have food, and that they have access to medical care if their condition deteriorated. There's only 3 hospitalizations right now. That's important. We have not had the surge in hospitalizations that you've seen in other parts of the state, most recently in the Central Valley. And you remember the experience in New York a couple of months ago. We have not had that. We don't want that. And the way we can prevent that is by doing the right thing and practicing all the modifications we've talked about. You can see on the top of that dashboard that the West County has had more cases than the East County. 3 months ago, I should say, the East County, the Truckee area, had more cases, but more recently, the West County has been more active. Recovered, you can see a large number there, and we are changing the name from recovered to those who are no longer in isolation for this very difficult and tragic reason. Once people have finished their 10 days of isolation, it's not like, okay, everything's done, you can go back to work, you'll feel normal again. You're hearing the term long haulers. There is a significant percentage of people, including young people, including people who have had only mild illness, who have symptoms for weeks, if not months, perhaps years, perhaps a lifetime. This is an unknown and potentially huge burden on our society, on our healthcare system that is yet to be determined. This we really need to pay attention to. So now we're saying not recovered, but out of isolation. And tragically, we've had 6 deaths, a low number, but certainly each one of them tragic, most of them elderly folks with chronic medical conditions, a good number of them in congregate living facilities. So a low number compared to the rest of the state, but we've been blessed with that low number. We've been blessed without a lot of hospitalizations because we've been doing the right thing as a county. Next slide. So this just explains some of what those terms mean. I already talked about recovered being changed, hospitalizations, case rate, and positivity rate. Those are going to be a little different than what you'll find on the state website because the definitions are different. And the deaths are low. We're looking at deaths if somebody has died from something else, and oh, by the way, they also had a positive COVID test, we're not counting those. We're only counting those where COVID was a significant primary factor or contributing factor to their cause of death. Next slide. So we're open to any questions you might have, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. So can we go back to the screen with the participants? Great. Okay. So I will go around for the council to see if anybody has any questions. Howard, any questions?
Yeah. Since the number that we usually are looking at now is the weekly averages on the website, is that going to be made available to the public so that we can have some kind of understanding of where we are in the purple, red, orange,
Yes.
yellow system?
So I assume you're talking about the state website. Those numbers are available to the public at covid19.ca.gov.
I'm asking about in our county so that we know, what is it, 4 per 100,000 over a week average, numbers that move us from one category to another so we can see how we're doing.
Right. So they will be, you will not be able to translate that directly from our dashboard to the website since there are differences in definitions there, right? And so you will have to refer to the state website, and those data are released once a week on Tuesday at approximately noon. So we have to be in our current status for 3 weeks, and we have to meet the criteria for advancing to a less restrictive category for the last 2 of those 3 weeks before we can get into the yellow category. That's a little complicated, but every Tuesday at noon is when you want to look at the website to see where we are, and that will give you the exact case positivity rates and the case rates. Now, those are only tabulated by the state on Mondays and then released every Tuesday.
Okay, so that's only state related.
Right, but that's for each county. Each county, right.
Positive on a 7-day average.
Right, 7-day average with a 7-day lag, I need to point out.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary, any questions?
Yeah, Richard, you talked about services and support for people who may be undergoing this illness. You also mentioned that we should encourage people to stay home if they don't feel well. I would like to know how we do that for essential workers who are supporting their family and their children, for single mothers who don't have another income, for single women who have to pay their rent. I'm a little confused as to how we encourage people to stay home when they have no sick leave and they have no sick time. How is the county supporting people who have symptoms, who are essential workers, who work in these jobs where they're not supported with healthcare or sick leave?
Thank you, Hillary. That's an excellent question. Now, for those who are on isolation or quarantine, then we certainly, working with social services and public health, will cooperate and ensure that those needs are taken care of. But for people who are not on isolation or quarantine, people who might have symptoms and they're concerned, is this just a cold? Is this allergies? Is it reaction to the smoke? Is it perhaps the flu, which, since we all know flu season is coming? So this is a problem that in our society we have dealt with every year with the flu. It's not just unique to this year. COVID is thrown in the mix this year, but it's a problem every year. And you all know, and you and I both are probably guilty of taking 2 Advil or Tylenol and going to work when we were mildly sick, right? Because we felt like what we had to do was essential. We've all done that. And probably most of us didn't do that because we needed the dollar that day, like a lot of people that you're pointing out who do it because the next meal depends upon their going to work and getting that check. And so people in that category, I'll admit, it's very difficult, number one. Number two, they should reach out to government social services and public health to see if there's any way that we possibly can help with any of the programs that we have. And number three, we need to think about larger solutions to that problem, whether that rests with the state and the federal government, to provide that social safety net for people who are unable to make ends meet in those kinds of situations. Because without the ability to have sick leave, without the ability to take care of their kids or to provide childcare, that's a very difficult situation. And I'll be honest, I don't have all the answers for that. The answers are beyond us at the county, but we need as a society to answer those questions. Thank you, Hillary. I appreciate that.
How do we direct people to access social services locally in the event that is the case?
So I'll ask Jill, if Jill is still on, to answer that, if she could.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, it is working. Yeah, so if they're trying to access services while they're in quarantine or isolation, is that what you're asking about, Hillary? Or are you asking about if they're simply symptomatic?
Jill, we can barely hear you.
I think I may be having too many technical difficulties. I'm sorry.
Is this something we can put on our website?
I think it is.
Yes, I can get it up on the website, Hillary.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Since we can't get that answer, I will direct that question to Jill and get a response back to you after the meeting. Thank you, and I apologize for that difficulty.
Thank you. Jan, any questions?
Just one. I mean, I think everybody is pretty excited about being able to move into Orange, which is the 50% capacity in restaurants and all the other things that we can start opening up in a broader sense. However, I know people are saying, well, how can we get to yellow? Because you're never satisfied with where you are. Everyone wants to get. What is the difference between orange and yellow? So that maybe that would be an incentive for people to strive for. I know the restaurants will never go beyond 50% capacity. I understand indoor dining, but what would be the incentive for people to strive to go into yellow so that they continue to follow the protocol?
Excellent question. How do we get there? We get there by practicing the modifications that we talked about, the masking, the hand washing, the social distancing, minimizing gatherings. That's how we get there, because then public health will have less cases to go ahead and deal with, and case rates are important. The other thing is we need to have people who are asymptomatic get tested. Jill pointed out the OptumServe site. We need to have large numbers of asymptomatic people go to those sites, because as the denominator increases and more people test negative, then our test positivity rate will go down. And so the test positivity rate going down and the case rate going down, that's how we advance to the yellow tier from the orange tier.
I understand that part, but what is the significant difference that could be like the little carrot for people to even strive harder to get us into yellow? So what is the carrot that we can dangle in front of people?
So what I would do is look at those counties. If you go to that covid19.ca.gov website and you look at the counties that are already in yellow, and that will show you what the difference is in terms of the capacity and the activities that are allowed in each of those sectors when you move from orange to yellow. That ought to be the incentive. How are we going to get fully open to allow our economy to recover? How are we going to keep our schools open? How are we going to, recover from this fully, both our economy and our social and mental and emotional well-being, in addition to our physical well-being? Those are the incentives that we have. And so if you look at the difference between the orange and the yellow on that website, that is, people need to keep that in mind. That's the goal. And we need to keep that in mind so that we can each do our part to get there.
Okay, thank you.
Ben, any questions?
Yes, I have some. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for being here today and giving us this presentation and answering some of our questions. You had mentioned that testing appointments, that's kind of changed recently. They're for essential workers only. Is there walk-in appointments? So say, hypothetically, I wasn't a essential worker. Could I just go there tomorrow and see if there's an appointment available or an open slot? Or do I have to be an essential a worker and make an appointment?
There are appointments reserved for essential workers, but anybody can either get an appointment, and if appointments are available when they walk up, they can be seen and tested. But obviously, if you just walk up, there's not necessarily a guarantee that that will happen. But right now, there is adequate capacity for walk-ups to get tested. If testing interest increases again, because maybe we have more cases or for some reason awareness increases and the desire to getting tested increases, perhaps then slots will fill up. But right now there is capacity for both appointments for non-essential workers and for walk-ups.
Okay, thank you. How many tests can be done in a day?
I believe at each site it's over 150. I think 162 is a number there. Jill is on the chat, says 132.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. And then my last question is, has there been any discussion with the state at the state level about potentially having a green category where there is an open economy? Because as of right now, there is no open option. And so there's a lot of speculation. Well, is it going to last a month, a year, 2 years? What has there been any discussion, and can you tell us any of that information?
I can certainly, and that's an excellent question. Lots of actually fairly heated discussion about that, as you might imagine. The green category will be reserved after a vaccine is available, where there is sufficient uptake to that vaccine. In other words, people are accepting of that vaccine and they take that vaccine. And obviously there's lots of vaccine hesitancy, so that's an issue. And the second thing is the vaccine effective? And how long will it take us to know that? Lots of political discussion about when will a vaccine be available. There are many different vaccines in the pipeline. Small amounts of vaccine might be available later this year. You've heard talk about large quantities of vaccine not being available to the public till the second or third quarter of 2021. But essentially what it requires is what everybody calls herd immunity. And that's loosely defined as 70% of the population being immune, although there's certainly debate about that. But until most people have been exposed to the vaccine or to the illness where they have some kind of immunity, how long that immunity lasts, we don't know yet. That's when we can get to the green category where everything can be opened up again. I'm not going to venture to say when that might be. It's certainly not going to be in 2020. I sure hope it will be sometime in 2021. But you know, you're familiar with the quote that Yogi Berra said. The only trouble about, I can't even remember it, but it talked about predictions and about the future and how difficult it is to make predictions. And so I would be very cautious to make predictions other than that. But green basically is defined as vaccine that's effective with good uptake.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I do not have any questions, but I just really want to thank you for the work that you're doing on this. And I really want to thank Jill, if she's still on the line, for all the hard work that public health and our community. And I also want to applaud the county for the good work that they've done for us to get into the orange today. There's some counties that are going backwards, and we certainly don't want to be one of those. But I think our community has done a great job, and now is not the time, like you said, to relax the standards, but to keep going and wash your hands and wear a face mask and socially distance. So thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. We really appreciate you giving us your time this evening.
Thank you. And thank you for all your support. We really appreciate it.
Okay. We have one other introduction, and it's a proclamation, and I'm really sad that there's nobody here that we can give this to, but I am going to read it. It is a proclamation proclaiming September as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas prostate cancer is the most frequently diagnosed cancer in men and the second leading cause of cancer deaths in men, where it is estimated that 20,160 men in California will be diagnosed with prostate cancer this year, and 3,890 will die from this disease. Whereas early prostate cancer usually has no symptoms, and studies suggest strong familial predisposition may be responsible for 5 to 10% of the death of the disease cases. Whereas the 5-year survival rate approaches 100% when prostate cancer is diagnosed and treated early, but drops to 31% when it spreads to other parts of the body. Whereas the name of the City of Grass Valley joins communities across our nation to increase the awareness about the importance for men to make an informed decision with their healthcare provider about early detection and testing for prostate cancer now, and therefore be it. The City of Grass Valley resolved that designates September 2020 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. And we will make sure that we get this certificate to the appropriate people after we gather all of the signatures. So thank you for that. I'm going to pass it to you guys because you need to sign this. Okay, moving right along. Our next item is public comment. Members of the public are encouraged to submit public comments via voicemail at 274-4390 or email at public@cityofgrassvalley.com. Comments will be reviewed and distributed before the meeting if received by 5 p.m. Comments received after that will be addressed during the item or at the end of the meeting. Are there any general public comments this evening, Taylor?
Yeah, the first public comment that we will have is from Tom Last tonight. He should be joining us in just a second.
Mute me. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey,
All
Tom.
right. Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I just have a quick presentation on some additional good news. The city did receive an additional $65,000 in monies from the local early action planning grants program. This is a grant we applied for back in June, which was going to be used to supplement the Southern Sphere of Influence planning and annexation project, which we just started the environmental impact report process on. So this is very good news. We're able to supplement that planning effort that we're working on. And these funds are all tied back to Senate Bill 2, which are funds that are being set up to assist with the promotion of additional housing throughout the state. So that's all I have to say. Just again, some additional good news that we've received some additional grant funds. So that's it.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Taylor, anything else?
Yeah, so we have one additional public comment tonight. This public comment came from Audrey Schwartz. She writes tonight to City Council, will you please add racial justice to the agenda today and from now on until there ceases to be racial injustice? Are you aware of Black and Indigenous and people of color being photographed by white people locally? What are you doing to make this community feel safe for everyone of every race? How can you call this a great community, quoted from last Grass Valley City Council meeting, when there are people in this community who do not feel safe because of their skin color? How is this a great community when there are people who live here yelling racial slurs at Black people, as well as calling other people of color in this community racial slurs? How is this a great community when you, members of City Council, went along with racist requests to take down signs in support of Black people's lives and refused to put them back up? How is this a great community? Will you please make racial justice a priority because it is? Have you all had racial equity training recently? Has GVPD? Will you get that done ASAP, please? What are you doing to make Grass Valley a safe place for Black and Indigenous and people of color? That is the end of the public comment as of tonight.
Great, thank you. All right, our next item is our consent. All matters listed under the consent calendar are to be considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless before the City Council votes on the motion to adopt, members of the council or the public or the staff request an item to be removed. Any changes on the consent this evening? Anybody? All right, I would entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jen.
Do you want to do a second, Howard?
Sure.
Okay. So we have a motion by Councilmember Arbuckle and a second by Councilmember Levine. A roll call?
Councilmember Arbuckle,
Yes.
Councilmember Hodge,
Yes.
Councilmember Levine,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Aguilar,
That was enthusiastic. Absolutely.
Mayor Swarthout.
Yeah.
All 5 yeses.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have no public hearings this evening. We have 2 administrative items. The first one is the Nevada County Transit Services rebranding project. And is there somebody from NCTC that's going to be on the line to do that?
Robin is joining now.
Great,
From Transit Services.
from Transit Services.
Yeah.
Hi, Robin.
Good evening, Mayor Swarthout, council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to take a few minutes of your time and give you an update on the Grass Valley portion of transit services. Let me wiggle around here a bit, get my lighting better. There we go. So we are here today. I'm to give you an update on rebranding of the Gold Country Stage and Gold Country Lift transit system. It is the Nevada County Transit System that was established by a joint powers authority between Grass Valley, Nevada City, and the county, with the county set to operate that system. Gold Country Stage has basically been in effect for 45 years, 1975. And it's had the same look since about 1975. And that was the impetus behind this project, was to keep with current times, update the look and feel of the transit system, realign it with the community, reacquaint the community with the system itself, and give it just a general makeover. So that's part one. The second part of the project, and this is truly the reacquaint it with the community piece, is that we are looking to have local artists basically submit designs or concepts for a bus wrap, which will then be installed on the fleet of Gold Country Stage buses. So the big 32-foot buses that you see rolling around town will become rolling art murals for our community to show off what we have, to show off the artistic talent that we have here, but also to provide a look at kind of the cultural aspect that we have, the art, the entertainment, the outdoors. We have a ton to offer here, and our current system doesn't necessarily engage that. And so that's what we were looking to do at the outset of this project. And I'm excited to say that I think we've made it. Taylor, can you share the, oh, sorry, Tim. So I've got a brief presentation for you that kind of gives you a look at the new look logo and color scheme. And to give you an idea, this project was taken to RFP. We had 3 bidders. Of those bidders, Threefold Communications out of Sacramento was chosen. And from that point, we created a project management team, which encompassed myself, Dan Landon, the executive director of Nevada County Transportation Commission, Eliza Tudor, the executive director of the Nevada County Arts Council, Heather Heckler, who was the communications and marketing manager for Connecting Point 211, and Taylor Wolf, who is the public information officer from the county. So that was our project management team to guide this project. And we've had a lot of fun. It was kind of a broad spectrum of perspectives within experiences within the county and experiences with artwork. And it made for an entertaining project process. So Taylor, can we pull up the presentation?
Do you have the presentation? I thought you were going to share it from your desktop.
Oh, I can get it. Yes, I can. Hold on just a minute,
That's
folks.
wonderful.
Hang on a sec, folks. My apologies. All right. And there we go. So what you're looking at is what is proposed as the new logo and name for Gold Country Stage. It's now Nevada County Connects. As I mentioned at the outset, one of the things that was noted by the consultants as they went through and did stakeholder interviews, rode the buses and talked to passengers, went through the downtown businesses of Grass Valley and Nevada City and talked with local constituents, is that folks didn't necessarily associate Gold Country Stage with the service that the county or the cities provided. And so that was one of the major things, was to bring that association as a county service into play. The naming as Nevada County Connects is another effort to show the connectivity within the community. The transit system connects you with educational opportunities, with work opportunities, with adventure opportunities, even so far as when COVID's not slowing us down. opportunities to go to the South Yuba River and take the bus there. So it's really trying to embrace the fact that we provide more than just a stagecoach to get you up and down Main Street. We're trying to connect your life to your community. That's, as is here on the slide, that was kind of what those research findings were when the consultants went through and did the interviews with the local constituents. And one of the other major items is that the county needed to create a creative support in social media, in marketing materials, newsletter, as well as updating the actual transit system informational product to make it more user-friendly. So the color design and the color palettes, they came about, obviously we're in the foothills. We embrace the South Yuba River as being a major part of our attractant, the forest lands, camping, lakes. Those are key to daily life here for us. And that's really what the blue-green coloration is supposed to exemplify for this. And the red is eye-catching. The red is meant to attract your attention. The red is meant to give you pause. And that is also why the O in Connect is what it is. It's actually a stop indicator from a transit map. It's your stop, it's your system. The system will bring you to where you want to be. And again, it's all about connecting the system to the public and to the community. So here we have the polished consultant description of where Nevada County Connects came from. And that it's really to bring us together. And hopefully we do that. The O is to indicate that you're here, you're where you need to be. And the S and the continuation of the top of the S is really meant to spur you to think that there is further adventure at the end of your trip. Hopefully there is. So given the new naming, it's a great play on words for a system, right? We connect you to locally crafted goods. We connect you to your local neighborhood brewery. We connect you to Sierra College, and we connect you to endless adventures. Then we have the new name and logo for Gold Country Lift, which is our ADA and senior dial-a-ride service, demand responsive, Nevada County Now. As you can see, the O in Now is slightly different than the O in Nevada County Connects, and that's more of a map placeholder icon, and it's meant to indicate that this is an immediate and not on a line. We're coming to you. We're delivering you to a specific location on a map. It's deriving its name from the fact that this is demand responsive. It's based on your need when you need it at the time you want it. And it's taking you to and from specific locations. And this gives you an idea of what the logo and naming would look like on the bus. It should be noted that the logo would actually wind up being below the black bumper line on the bus, with the area where the logo is currently, and the windows in the top of the bus will all be covered with murals, with the artwork from the local artists once that process is finally done. And we're looking at that hopefully being done by ideally February to March. just depending on weather, depending on the process with the artist RFPs and getting that solicitation done. This is just an example of how it looks with a business card. A little bit different, a little more modern, but still incorporating the county seal. And then some marketing ideas. As you can see, this is a lot different and a lot more palatable than the current Gold Country stage, gold and blue. It's much more modern and it's much more user-friendly, so to speak. And then we come to the best part for me, which is the update of the rider's guides in the system map. This is the #1 complaint we have from folks, that it's difficult to read, that it's hard to decipher our schedules, hard to understand where the buses go. This will be a night and day improvement over our current product, which I'm thrilled about, because this generates interest in the system and this generates trust within the system as people are able to understand what it is we do, where we go, and how we're going to get you there. And that is the presentation. I'm open for questions or comments.
Great. Thanks, Robin. Can you take off your screen share so we can see you again? Perfect.
Yep, there we
Okay.
go.
All right. Any questions? Howard, any questions?
Yes, Mayor. If it's supposed to connect people who are going to the river or going south or whatever, and they come and they're not from Nevada County, but they don't want to drive to the river because there's no parking, or they'll get a $100 parking ticket. Is, other than your printed material, is there mobile material? Is there an app?
We have an app for that.
Okay.
We do. So this information, we actually have you can access it through Google Trip Planner. If you go into Google Maps and you put in your location and where you want to go, and you tap on the transit icon, the little sort of train icon, our system is in there, and it will give you up-to-date times. We currently operate a software program called Swiftly that updates the estimated times of arrival for all our routes and buses, and it works across the Google platform. You'll get alerts that way as well. You can also go to the transit app, literally just transit app, and you can get the same information. You can also go on the Nevada County website to the transit page and put in, we have drop-down menus that provide you with what route you want to go on, what direction you want to go on, and the stop you want to get off, or the stop you want to pick up the bus at, and it will give you the estimated time of arrival or the next arrival for that stop. So yes, that we are working diligently to make it more user-friendly and bring it into the 21st century.
Fabulous. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hillary, any questions?
Couple of comments, couple of questions. Writer's guide map, totally awesome. Thank you so much for that. I think a lot of people are really going to benefit from an easier map and an easier read. To be clear with the public on what we're doing here, this is an update from our transportation folks, and we are not voting on any design. This design has already been decided on. So if you want to give feedback, this was decided at the county. I just, in my own feedback with regard to marketing, that big red circle is a little too reminiscent of bad air quality and the red sky that we saw after fire danger. And I think maybe there could be a different way to market. And how do people apply to get their murals on the side of the buses? Where do they go for that?
So we're working on that. I'm actually working with Eliza Tudor right now to finalize the language for that. Apparently the first draft was not necessarily artist friendly, and they kicked it back to me saying, could you make this at least somewhat readable for us? What will likely happen is that it's going to go and be posted on the Nevada County Arts Council page and run through that as long as I have approval through the county purchasing department to do that. But it makes more sense to have it there than it does on the county website, because I'm fairly certain most people don't go there to find artwork. So if possible, I'm trying to have that released October. And so we'll still need to nail down the length of time that it will be open and available. But minimum, it will be 30 days. It will potentially go longer than that, as part of the feedback I just got today was that artists will likely need more time if we're seeking to have them do 3 to 5 designs if they want. They don't have to submit that, but give them time to provide proper what they're comfortable with.
Let's see.
What's that?
What, Howard?
Is there an incentive for artists to be on the bus?
We have come to a $3,000 commission for the artist who is chosen to do this. So the process as it stands right now is we'll put the solicitation out for bid. Hopefully we will, interest at least 10 artists to propose. From that, the intent is to have a project management team go through and identify 10 pieces to move forward into a public showing. So we're going to do an artist show and then have that open to the public and have the public actually choose their favorite of the artist show, which is going to go towards, which will then be the piece that goes onto the bus wrap. And then the length of time currently is we're looking at 12 to 18 months for the wrap to be on the vehicle. So that piece of art will be on the vehicles for 12 to 18 months. And then the intent is to do this on basically in every 12-month period with an 18-month window for the artwork.
So we have a lot of talented artists in this community, as we've seen in downtown Grass Valley with our recent updates to our barriers for our little parklets and our outdoor dining. How many buses do we have in our fleet?
We have 11.
Why can't we have 11 different designs?
Well, we could, but we don't have, I don't necessarily have $33,000 I can kick out for commission funds.
Okay, so it's about commissioning the artists. Okay.
Yeah, we want, that was one of the big things, was to make sure that we're actually paying the artists something for this and make it financially viable for them to actually do the artwork.
I appreciate that. I'm an artist. I believe artists should get paid for their artwork.
Definitely.
I I also wonder how we could maybe expand the opportunity. So that'll be my last comment.
And totally reasonable and understandable. I will bring that back to Eliza, and I will, see what we can do in terms of potential opportunities there, because honestly, she had that exact same comment for me as we did this today. So
thank you.
Understandable. Thank you.
Thanks, Hillary. Jan, any comments or questions?
No comments, no questions. I've seen this presentation before since I sit on the Transit Services Commission, and to speak to Hillary's point about the big red O, yeah, it was quite a conversation piece. Many of us thought it looked like the Target logo, the Target store logo. And then there were some other things, but Robin explained why it is the way it is. And so all I can say is, Robin, you've done a lot of work and to get it to this point. And the reasoning is to try and get more ridership, and having updated it so it doesn't seem like a stagecoach type of feel any longer. It's hopefully what'll happen. And I know that's your intent. So that's all I have to say. I don't like the red dot, but he knows that already. We've had that conversation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Critic. Everybody's a critic when you do a new logo.
Yeah, no, exactly. So.
Yes.
Yes. You'll get some kind of.
Ben, any questions, comments?
Robin, thank you for the presentation. I happen to live on a bus stop, and I actually use the bus every once in a while, so I don't have to drink and drive. It's pretty convenient for me.
Fantastic.
So I just downloaded the app that you guys have on here, it's Transit. Does kind of to go on Howard's questions about the technology on it. I remember it was a while back, you guys had a real-time feature where you could see where the bus was. Is that is that incorporated in that app? Because I know the bus isn't running now, but is that with Transit, or is that a different app? Or
Transit will provide you with that information as well. We do have an app called Route Shout that is also available for download that provides similar information. Unfortunately, sometimes Route Shout can be glitchy. So it will provide you the same information. What you can get off of Google Transit or the Transit app may be more reliable in terms of ETAs to your stop.
We are all familiar with the technology being glitchy now that we have to Zoom all our meetings. So
glitchy's a new word, a new buzzword.
And I would like to thank you for riding the bus, and I'd also like to share with you, Councilwoman Arbuckle knows about this. For our budget this year, we have had approved the funding and the personnel to expand our services on Route 1 between Nevada City and Grass Valley, to take it back to 30-minute service, which we had previously back in 2008 and 2009. So hopefully once COVID is over and we can sort of get things back to normal, we'll be able to offer you even more frequency and a little more efficiency and economy in being able to take the bus. And it'll be, you won't have to hang out for 45 minutes at your local coffee shop or other establishment waiting
my front porch.
To your front porch.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
So Thanks for the presentation. We really appreciate it. I ride the bus exactly one time a year, and that is to and from the fair. And we didn't have the fair this year, so I didn't get to ride it. But that's because I live downtown, so I walk a lot. For what it's worth, I like your new logo. I know anytime you introduce anything new, it's always, but I really like the fact that it looks modern, but it doesn't, it looks more modern. And I think what you are trying to do is reach out to a different group of people for more ridership. So I like it. I appreciate the effort that has gone into this because I know it's not easy. And thank you very much for taking time this evening for your presentation. So thanks.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Councilwoman Arbuckle, thank you for making the recommendation to do this and for approving this through the TSC. Much appreciated.
Okay, thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, our final item this evening is a discussion about a decision about the Mill Street closure for the holiday season. And I believe, Tim, you're doing this one?
Yes, I'll take this. So for the record, Tim Keiser is city manager.
Hang on one second, Tim.
Audio is a little off there. If we move the microphone to a little bit better place.
Can you hear me better now?
It's a little robotic still, but it's better.
Yeah, better. So it's almost got like a scratchy quality to it.
I had to mention technical difficulties.
You jinxed it.
Ben jinxed us.
You jinxed it.
Yeah, maybe I'm just a little scratchy and it's just coming through that way. So hopefully it clears up a little bit. Is that any better?
Nope.
No.
Taylor was fine. We could hear her fine. Change places with Taylor.
Here, let me move the mic back. Can you hear that? Does that work better?
That's
No.
worse.
Is Tim
I don't know.
on your iPad or anything like that?
No, they're on the couch.
How about, did that help?
No.
Okay.
Can you come up here? Is that a?
Sounds like interference with another mic or something.
Yeah, it sounds like interference.
It sounds like
No, it's still interference.
Does someone have their cell phone on or their another device? Or two?
Would that help?
Tim, I would suggest maybe you can come down here and go up from the podium.
Yeah, I'll be down. Taylor, I don't know how you're going to do my presentation, but I need you to do the pointer.
I'll just follow. How about that?
Okay. 5 second play.
Don't forget to mute that room before you leave, or Andy, you can mute it.
Andy and Mike.
They look like they look like they're
Michael.
frozen now. Oh no.
Oh, it's still bad. Someone needs to do something.
Yeah.
Oh,
That might have did it.
It's not it. I'm not sure if this is intentional, but the podium, the council chambers are now muted as well. I can't hear you, Lisa. Okay.
We were muted.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah. Brad doesn't want to hear us. He just turns us off.
The arrow.
I'm being difficult. Sorry.
See what you did then?
It's all my fault.
Okay. So now,
Yes.
hopefully that's a little clearer.
Can you guys hear? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear him. Okay,
Okay.
great.
For the record, Tim Keyser, City Manager for the City of Grass Valley. I'm here tonight to talk about the Mill Street closure due to COVID. Over the last few months, the city has worked with businesses and restaurants to expand services onto sidewalks, creating parklets, and closing a portion of Mill Street. To deal with the COVID-19 and also the associated protection requirements and guidelines associated with quote COVID and those items that affect our businesses in our downtown area. As part of this, the city temporarily closed a portion of Mill Street. The city, in doing this, partnered with the Grass Valley Downtown Association to create an inviting area for businesses and restaurants and to expand to the outdoor areas to safely attract patrons downtown. With this, we started this back in June. And if Taylor, maybe, because as good as I am, you're only seeing the side of me, maybe we could put up the screen so I can kind of show everyone what we're talking about.
Yeah, sign it in also for a second.
Okay. Okay, so everyone, there should be on the screen now the closure that the city prepared. We first started the closure on the north end of Mill Street from West Main to Bank, and we started that on June 9th, I believe. About 3 weeks later, we closed the southern portion, so it ended up closing the entire section. And with that, the city, in conjunction with the Downtown Association, like I said, we brought in picnic tables, we put up some banners. The Downtown Association did a lot of work to get the lovely white K-rail painted and decorated. And the city staff, in conjunction with Public Works and a landscaper, helped us decorate the downtown and make it a little more appealing than just a street. So when the restaurants and some businesses moved out, it wouldn't look like a vacant street. As part of this and meeting with the folks downtown, I think it's really important to understand the position that they're in. They are very much willing to work with each other. They were very cordial in listening to everyone's concerns and working together with the city on this. But we're also in a very unique time that causes a lot of issues for the businesses. Pre-COVID, all our businesses were in control of their destiny. Now that we're in COVID, unfortunately, government has gotten involved and has limited capacity in restaurants, limited the number of people going into businesses, or shutting down the business access to the public altogether. So in dealing with these things, there's a lot of frustration and unknowns that we're dealing with. And those kind of things came out during the conversations that we're having. And as we move forward, one of the things that they requested, and we tried to meet all the requests to the businesses that they put forward and dealing with different things as they brought them up over this period of time. But knowing what was going to happen for the holiday season, this unknown for them, we're into their biggest sale portion of the season, kind of their make or break area. So with that, we as a council and staff kind of decided that September 30th would be the drop dead. We would need to make a decision. Do we keep this open as shown keep this closed with the barricades and more of a pedestrian friendly environment, allowing the businesses to move out onto Mill Street and the restaurants to be out onto Mill Street? Or do we open it back up to public traffic, remove the barricades and allow the parking on the street? There was a couple other options that we did consider. We did consider, going back to how we originally started and open just back up the southern portion to traffic. And that would then turn Bank Street into a one-way out for traffic. It would be able to come
down, head north, and exit on Bank Street. The issue there that struggled for staff is that we're basically then picking and choosing. Some restaurants would be able to stay open. Other restaurants would have to either close or be limited to a parklet in a smaller space. The other option that we considered was opening it all up to traffic one way, all the way through. Again, that would cause a couple issues. We had some safety concerns. We would end up having to put some kind of barrier down the center line all the way through, probably some kind of concrete blocks, which would restrict people from walking from one side to the other. So you lose that pedestrian corridor that we would have now. It would also create some parklets for some of the restaurants, but it would limit the total number of parking. So even though we opened up one side, we would still be limiting some of that additional parking because of restaurants being able to create a parklet or something so they could have space outside. And it would also reduce our loading zones. So as we move forward with this, I want to make sure that some of the comments are expressed and heard from both sides so that everyone is understanding. And the three biggest negative comments out there were parking, accessibility, and then finally the fourth or third item that I am skipping, I need to find back in my notes, ADA access. So, and also, I also skipped deliveries and pickups. That was another big issue, those three big items. So what we have done to assist those are a couple things. One, the parking lot in Church Street, we have now redesigned and we've gained 11 new spaces. It will now be a one-way all the way around, and the new exit will be here back onto Neal Street. And we closed off this driveway here that allowed us a couple extra parking spaces on Church Street. But the other major change with this, that we are gaining 11 spaces, but we're also gaining 3 more ADA accessible spaces as part of this. So we tried to address that concern. The other elements is you can't see our paid parking lot at Neal Street and South Auburn. We have now changed that to 2 hours free. We need to improve the signage on that a little bit because the main signage still says paid parking lot and it's a little confusing, but that's something else we will work on if we're going to keep this closed in a permanent fashion. The final thing is we did for businesses, we waived the parking permit fee for employee parking in one of our employee paid parking lots. That's a tongue twister, on Mill Street or on South Auburn Street, which is also off this map. So as I said, staff has met with these folks. The results, we kind of asked everyone to gather on September 15th for the businesses to kind of provide us some input. On that, we were fortunate to have Councilmember Hodge and Arbuckle in attendance to hear their comments firsthand. I would say it's kind of a 50-50. You might say it's 55-45, but there isn't a clear preference for open or closed from the businesses and restaurants. Retail is definitely mixed because retail feels that having that parking in front of their business provides a significant benefit for them and their customers. The restaurants were more in favor of keeping it totally closed because even at us moving to this new orange level, which will assist them and add 50% capacity for indoor dining, you know, 5 out of the 6 restaurants and actually a 7th restaurant will open if we keep. So the other 5 restaurants that were opened expressed all similar situations that if it is not open for the public to use and be able to have outdoor dining on the street, they would probably have a lot of difficulties making it through this, the next few months. So getting with that, I discussed the four options. Two of them, like I said, we took off the table of, half Mill Street with traffic on one direction going northbound, or just closing the southern portion just due to some conflicts, and how do you pick which businesses can, be able to use parklets and not. So we feel that the first two options from a staff standpoint are better options. Either you pick up everything that is there and open it back up to the public how it was before, so you get the full benefit of parking, loading zones, and that kind of stuff, or you leave it closed and work with what we have. The one thing that staff and I am very adamant on is, if you're going to leave it closed, we need to work with the businesses downtown that are not restaurants, that are having to sacrifice some of their parking, and work with them even more by creating some more marketing. Make sure that we make our downtown, this corridor, and even bring in a little bit of West Main Street, very festive. So that means putting out more decorations, changing out the plantings for the seasons, and doing both a big holiday event for both Halloween, our fall, and then also for Christmas, so that we attract people downtown. Also, another things that we should be looking at is definitely getting some music downtown, small little bands, or have some kids do some singing and that kind of stuff to liven it up a little bit. And also possibly look at some grants for canopies and heaters. Something probably a 50% match and keep it to $250 max, but something to help the restaurants and those businesses that want to move out. And that's something I would suggest we do citywide and not limit it just to the downtown, but for anyone that is looking for those kind of functions. With that, I've spoken a lot, but if there's any questions, I would be more than willing to take those. And I know Taylor does have some public comments that we've also received.
Okay, thanks, Tim. So before we go to the public comment, is there any questions for Tim? Howard? Any questions?
Thanks.
Hillary, any questions?
I don't have any questions yet.
Okay, great. Jan, any
not
questions?
yet.
Ben?
I will defer until after the public comment.
Okay. So for public comment, we received way more public comment than what we would have time to read into the record. So we have asked staff to kind of give us a summary and read pretty much all the letters are the same, either for or against the opening. So I think we can give a good enough snapshot of the opinion of the community by what Taylor is going to read into the record right now. But just know that all of us on the city council received every single public comment this afternoon. And I believe I know I read them all. I'm pretty sure everybody did. So your messaging was heard loud and clear.
80 pages.
Yeah, 80 pages.
All right. Okay, so to date right now, we have received 71 public comments. All the names who gave names, who wanted to be known for the public record, are shown on the screen. I did do a breakdown of all comments. In favor, we had 47 of Mill Street staying closed, 13 opposed, and one at 100% open. And there was 10 other suggestions that were kind of neutral in between other suggestions and those kinds of things. We did do a random number generator to get a good feeling of all the letters, and we have 7 letters to read tonight. We have our first public comment that says, "This is Leslie Painter. I live in downtown Grass Valley and have been enjoying Mill Street being closed the way it is, and being able to go into the restaurants until I realized that the shops are closing down. An antique store told me that they have closed because they cannot get things in and out. It is hard for people to get in and out. And Tessa's that has been there for 60 years, I heard, is talking about she's going to have to close because people can't get to her shop, and that seems really sad. So I'm just really torn. I hope that the decision could be made that could somehow help the shop owners and the restaurant owners. I know that's not very clear, but it's quite concerning. I don't think that there's enough parking down there at all. There is not enough parking to have it closed like that. If people are going to have to park elsewhere to get to the stores, there's really not enough parking. Thank you. The next letter that we received was from James Arbaugh at Stubbe's Jewelers. He writes, "Attention City Council members and Mayor of Grass Valley. I wanted to share a few of my thoughts as a downtown business owner of 15 years, employee for 23, a downtown property owner of 10 years, and a co-chairperson to the Economic Vitality Committee for Grass Valley Downtown Association and the vice chair of the Grass Valley Planning Commission. Believe me when I say I have a passion for downtown Grass Valley. To start with, I want to extend a huge thank you for the speed in which the city has acted with time, finances, and manpower. If your efforts do not go unrecognized. Needless to say, we are in unprecedented times and have to make weighted decisions I know you do not take lightly. As a business that has been downtown Grass Valley for over 116 years, we have seen many trials and have weathered many storms. This, however, is not just about us. It is about all the businesses downtown, some of which may not survive the current climate. I believe we should reopen the street through the winter. It looks empty now and will look barren once the weather changes. I have extreme concerns with concerns that we are becoming a fair weather town, which will be our demise. While the street closure during the summer months seemed to be a success on weekend evenings, everything will change with the colder, wetter weather. It is so important that the shoppers and diners know that they can come downtown any time of the year, regardless of conditions, and businesses and restaurants downtown will be open. It is not acceptable for stores to be closed because it is inconvenient. Examples of it being too smoky, too hot, too rainy, or cold. This is a deterrent to all of us. We continue to hear from our customers regarding downtown with questions reflecting confusion and concern about if and when stores are open. The lack of consistency is not professional and reflects badly on every business that is only amplified when the street is closed and there is greater perception of inactivity and failure. This is a bad precedent to be starting when this is our livelihood, not a hobby. With winter weather coming, I'm concerned that the cold rain will affect food establishments that have outdoor seatings and retailers with merchandise outside. We will continue to see daytime closures and part-time hours with no public on the street. For example, Mondays and Tuesdays and many afternoons, food vendors and part-time realtors are closing, making downtown look concerningly vacant and support the fair weather mentality. The city asked for input originally and got it. The city then closed Mill Street with the agreement that everyone would be open to help and keep the street looking lively and busy all day, every day, and into this evening. However, many of the food vendors and few of the retailers who said they'd be fully participating have not, because it was too hot or too smoky, or they don't have the staff. We all have to come together for this to work. It cannot be just a full-time retailers compromising for the part-time food vendors and part-time realtors who love the idea of the street being closed but are never open. If these stores continue to stay closed, then we should not be catering to them and should be open to the street for more convenient parking for the stores that are open full-time. If it is not possible to open up Mill Street completely, then please consider opening up the corridor from Neal Street to Bank Street with parklets allowed for cafes and bars if needed. Please let me reiterate, I am not opposed to the long-term vision of a permanent and well-thought-out street closure. I am just concerned with the temporary aspect of this planning confusion bringing to our customers in town. I'm always available to answer any questions regarding my opinion on this topic. Sincerely, James Arbaugh. The next comment that we received was from Kathy Payne. She states, I'm really excited to think that we can keep this downtown Mill Street closed for the holidays. I have nothing negative to say. It is wonderful to have no cars. I say keep it closed. Catherine Payne. The next letter we received was from Joycelyn Sturch. She writes, I am writing in opposition of Mill Street to stay closed. I have mobility issues and have not been down there since it was closed off because it is too hard to walk a couple of blocks from parking on crutches. It is also a hill from whichever parking lot you get into Mill Street. When it gets wet and the streets and sidewalks are slick, it's going to be even harder for those of us with mobility issues to get into the businesses on the streets. Please open the streets back up so we are able to shop too. Thank you, Joycelyn. The next letter we received was from Lily Collad. She writes, Please enter my comments below into the record for the City Council meeting tomorrow, 9/22/2020. The city has done an amazing job thus far in creating a vibrant and viable place to help our businesses and community members have a place to feel safe and welcome to shop, dine, and be entertained during the past few months. I commend Tim Keyser and Marnie Marshall for the management of implementing the projects and their handling of the communications with the downtown businesses during the process. I have attended the meetings for the downtown businesses and have been open to exploring all the options that were and were not on the table. After listening to all the perspectives, I want to make it clear that I am in support of keeping the street closed as long as the city is willing to continue to stand behind this project as it is currently doing. I think that Grass Valley has an enormous opportunity right now. There are people moving here from the Bay Area and other places who have considerable income and resources. They are on the younger side of our current median age and have money to spend in the community. In addition, we have a current population who won't be going to the Galleria Mall or similar to shop. Yes, some will turn to online shopping, but still many want a shopping experience. If the city is willing to invest in this, I think that we can easily compete with the online shopping by offering something that online retailers cannot, the experience. Picture our sweet downtown lined with trees, foliage, and flowers of the season, lights on a tree, and then streets and the spaces and restaurants occupying the awnings and heaters. Some live outdoor music, Santa wandering up and down the streets, and a popcorn vendor or chestnuts roasting. People will want to come downtown. Yes, to shop. Yes, to dine outdoors. Yes, to wander the open street where their kids can roam freely. Yes, it will rain. On those days, our outdoor spaces may not be utilized as much as possible, but it will still be visibly pleasing. Parking becomes the biggest issue. Hasn't it always been? Monitoring the parking lots and fine those in violations of parking time limits. Let's create a valet service, and validate spending over $50 to $100, parking is free. If not, pay $10. People pay a lot more at the Galleria for this service and don't blink an eye. Don't want to pay? No problem. Find a spot with town frequently, both locally